Good soul shot. Seriously, man. One step before. God, one round. Go shy.
Lipstick. See how he handled the situation with having a Hall of Fame player like Vancover sitting on the bench over there. He can handle the emotions at the time.
Ahead to William Carlson. Over the Minnesota line. He fights for Eichel. Eichel throws one on goal. Talbot with a save. Trying to drag it through the slot for a shot. Gaudreau gets a stick on it. Foley takes it away. Foley fires. And that one's deflected wide. Dmitry Kulikov switching his jersey number from 29 to 7 to allow Vancover and Fleury his traditional 29. Kulikov fires. Blocked by Conley. Kulikov again. And it was deflected. And then caught by the post.
Kulikov in the number 7 jersey served in pretty well his first.
About 30 more than Marcus Foligno, who was leading the Wild in that department. Hartman with a shot. And an unconventional save, to say the least, by Logan Thompson. Cross-ice pass intended for Colasar. Nolan Patrick jumps on it. Sharp angle shot knocked down by Talbot. Patrick plays to the corner. Yanmark bumped off the puck there. Colasar works out from behind the net. And Talbot makes the save and covers.
Got lost behind the net. You don't see that very often by Matt Foley. Lost position down low, and because the Wild are kind of playing man on.
Rock controlled by Vegas. Wrong shot deflected. Wild control the draw. Duhane comes to center. Puts it down into the Vegas zone. Delorier. Another heavy hit along the end boards. Duhane up towards the zone. Merrill sets it across. Now Jost. Side step for Hall. Plays it back for Duhane to score! Delorier! In his first game with the Wild, finds the back of the net. 1-6 Minnesota.
You get out up in the high ice. Gets the puck up in the slot. Great play from behind the net there by Duhane. And he's able to one-time break through the wickets of the Vegas Golden Knights goaltender.
Petrangelo sends it across for Hunt, and now Colasar. Got it through. Yanmark a shot saved by Talbot. Ball rebound. Patrick plays it back in behind the Minnesota goal.
They were both between 26 and 28 minutes. Those are heavy, heavy minutes to play, especially in a condensed schedule. That's going to catch up with you at one point or another to continue to play like that. But right now,
Duhane for Jost. Kulikov fires. Back down by Thompson. Delorier on the backhand. And then Duhane shifted high in the air to wide. He will be our guest with Andy Levant at first intermission. One a day. Exciting day, no doubt about it. And it's a buzz here all night. Gaudreau on the backhand. Saved by Thompson. Fiala a chance. That's blocked.
Golden Knights around the net. They're just struggling to make the first save, but just so much stuff playing around there, especially in the last 2 home games that I watched really closely.
As we start the second period, the Wild hold a 1-0 lead. Spurs into Goligoski are underway in the second. Marshall's still there. And Petrangelo has it taken away by Fiala. Fiala tries to cut to the net. Fiala's in! Saved by Thompson.
Taking advantage of the number 5 and 6 defensemen. Both played one game in the National Hockey League between the two of them. Kevin Fiala blows like him by Zach Hayes like he is an American Hockey League player right there. And that's what National Hockey League super a guy that doesn't have a whole lot of experience as well. See if they can take advantage of some of this game as well.
Davies sends it in behind the net for Marshall. So
again, that's what happens when you ice the puck, narrow ice the puck, and then this is the matchup that the board was able to get.
Carlson keeps the line. For Hall with a long shot, picked up by Talbot. Hayes with a shot from the other point. His entry hit Fiala to the surprise. Fiala circles back to center, and now Marchessault's in for Vegas. Marchessault on the wraparound, and a pad saved by Talbot. Just moments after he stopped Marchessault on the wraparound. Let's go 1-2. Erickson races in for Minnesota. against Conklin along the boards. Erickson waits, back to Merrill, and Merrill couldn't get a shot away, and trickles just wide. Marino trying to center. He was taken down at the side of the net. Looking for the separator goal, just missed. Goes up. Has stopped all 19 biggest shots he's seen to this point. And we're underway with the final 20 minutes. 3 goals, 3 assists in Vegas. 17.
Gigantic goal for the Minnesota Wild. There was a little bit of contact when that puck went into the net. Didn't sell it much at all here. Nice play by Hugh Erickson. Finding back down there in the slot, and Marcus Vino goes through the crease there. I think he caught a piece of it at all. I'm sure the Vegas Golden Knights are going to look at that one there, but
The contact came after the puck got locked. Brody holds his own. Bumper. Across. Fiala, a shot. And Thompson.
a good save there by Logan Thompson. Thompson, the puck around there, easy to really with no traffic. It's been interesting to watch here. Dean Henderson really
Bruce puck picked up there by Hartman. Hartman waiting. Fires towards the net. Greenway out front. And knocked away by Carlson. Eichel wheels down into the corner. Cut off there. Trying to work it out front. Parks or so a backhander. And saved by Talbot.
I thought he was by far the best player, most dangerous player here. Turnover right down below the goal line and Jack. Or can't tell, but does an outstanding job of just staying with that.
Plays it all the way across to Broussard. Band on it. Hartman. Center. And a chance though. Thompson sliding out. Zuccarello just misfired. Minnesota coming close. Still reading. Just 2.
Well, that 2 face-off guys on the ice, nice and so can. Also, Buzovsky gets put out.
Here's puck out front. Talbot with a big save on Carlson.
About 30 seconds before that backdoor Carlson one-timer. Talbot moving from his right to left. I talked about him moving so cleanly.
Erickson with a takeaway at center. Erickson tied up by Stevenson. Down to 12 seconds left. Petrangelo has it poked away by Marino. Hartman scores!
And again at the other end, a turnover by Petrangelo trying to do a little bit too much, and Brian Hartman says thank you very much. Much better energy through the third period. The puck management was right on point. Only the Vegas Golden Knights to 9 shots. A team that was pushing for 2 gigantic points.
Everybody, my name is Democracy, and today we're kicking off a new boss ranking series. Over the course of the last month, we ranked the difficulty of the Soulsborne. I really hate the term Soulsborne. Oh, okay, well then let's just call it the Soul series. It says top 10 harder bosses in the Soul series. Bloodborne doesn't have any related story from Dark Souls series. You fucked up now, didn't you? Well, I knew there was gonna be a little resistance. For the last fucking time, you autistic child, Bloodborne is not a fucking Souls game. Why would you use Bloodborne, you idiot? It's not part of the Souls series in any way. Okay, I hear you. I had no idea this would get people so riled up. So I've got a solution everybody can agree on. We're gonna call it Darkborn. You heard it here first. Next list is top 10 reasons why I love the word Darkborn. So for the Souls series, 139 bosses. You all have given me a ton of great ideas for future lists, but before we get to those, I want to put our boss list to rest. The ranking of all 139 from worst to best. The criteria is going to be as follows. Difficulty, 10 points. This factor is not based on measurable difficulty like in our boss ranking. Instead, this is a rating on how balanced the challenge feels in the context of the fight. For example, while the name-looking fight is extremely challenging, it never felt to me like it was unfair, and the difficulty matched the reputation of a powerful god. A boss like the Royal Rat Authority, on the other hand, fuck those rats. Lore, 20 points. I'm sure counting lore as part of a boss atmosphere they're able to achieve. Most of this is thanks to the deep and intricate stories FromSoft weaves, and I believe a good backstory can give great context to a fight. Design, 30 points. What is a boss without good design? FromSoft is known for developing some of the best boss fights in gaming, but that doesn't mean there aren't some blemishes. When deciding on the quality of a boss, the actual mechanics are undoubtedly one of the most important factors. Entertainment value, 40 points. At its core, why do we play games? For fun. When it comes down to what makes a boss good or bad, the most important factor from my view is how enjoyable it is. Obviously, this one's going to be highly subjective, so I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say.
Ready to reframe the way you look at investing? Let's be advisor can help you with personalized financial advice. Let's give you ready advice. Online.
Welcome everyone, my name is Silver, and this is my attempt to beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Heart Gold with only Fire-type Pokemon. The full road step for this run is listed down below, but so simply, only the first Fire-type encounter in each route or area can be caught. If a Pokemon faces must be permanently boxed. No items except Hell items in battle. Party Pokemon levels are limited to the next gym leader or the Elite Four teams, and finally, the battle mode must be put on set at all times. The Fire type is always an interesting one in Pokemon playthroughs. Perhaps it makes most instruments like Diamond and Pearl, which gave you access to just two of them. In contrast, Purple and Soul Silver seem to have a plethora of Fire types, but in fact, this is a bit of an illusion. First, some rules don't allow legendaries. That means NK, Ho-Oh, and Moltres will be unobtainable. Next, Outlawer and Portable are only available in the Safari Zone, which is accessible around the 6th batch. However, they only appear once you have the national batches work. Finally, Charizard is of course only available in the Kanto post game. Interestingly, Snowball and Ponyta are technically only available in Kanto as well, but I have some plans for those two, which you'll see soon. With our lowest number of encounters of any challenge, and with a type that takes a long time to evolve and develop into good Pokemon, I have a feeling this might be crazy. Let's do it. In recent challenges, we've been on a roll with starters we can actually use, and this one's great because we can use it right away. Cyndaquil. I assassinated Quillen, and this is definitely one of my more obscure nickname references, so if anybody gets this, I'll be impressed. Let's check his nature, shall we? Oh, son of a... An impish nature, plus defense, and minus special attack.
What's going on, guys? Trade deadline is now over, and ton of trades went down today. I'm looking at like the three biggest ones I think the biggest on them. First things first, getting right on the Twitter trade. Color trade this in a while, but the additional second round hit. Becomes first round thing, Robin becomes final, and Flurry wins 14. It's kind of crazy, honestly, that Pittsburgh at the executive draft, second round pick, take Flurry, and they get to the contract.
So Pedersen will be top line with Forsberg, Garden, and then Thomas and Hollander. No. Yeah, Thomas and Hollander.
Very tall goalie, 36 years old, 1 year left there, 7 million overall. I'm really curious what we got to the season. They're retired. They returned to Pittsburgh. He's like in a very excellent role. I don't know. I'm curious to see what he can decide, but. I mean, yeah, what's his name when it comes to Flurry? I'm pretty sure it's like top 5 or top 3 in games played and wins. So here's a trade ready fit goalie. We're going to see right now in game the first round picking up, and then if not, the second round picking up. We'll see kind of which one works. As you see there, the values are pretty equal. I didn't get to mention probably the main 50% there. So it's kind of funny too. Minnesota really kind of all-star goalie and Talbot, and get the game to go and get Flurry. So clearly the all-star game might have a little bit of an issue. Even then, with 50% chance, it's still over the side now. Right now, so they're the worst of the magic to get this straight to work. So larger the Flurry can see this was ultimate sitting at the beginning of the game, and they'll get goalie. The question is, will they get their first round pick for him? Again, it's going to be close. I'm thinking, let's say 50%, they might say yes, give difficulty. Traeger's Jack, you can see there though, like, it's pretty close. That's why I think, you know, this first round pick in real life was actually pretty.
At Pizza Hut, we get asked, do you deliver? Yeah, we deliver.
Because she thinks it's easier to knit, while I kill everyone than it is to die over and over playing Bug Snacks herself. However, being my backseat gamer while I kill everyone in Dark Souls doesn't really solve the dying problem. I have been stabbed, shot, poisoned, electrocuted, and burned. Turning 100 used eyes into one victory achieved is kind of the point, so I understand why Shelby hasn't really enjoyed watching me roll my way through the Soulborn series any more than she would enjoy watching me roll my ankle 50 times before I land a single heel flip and say, hey, I think the skateboard is pretty good. That's why after 3 girlfriend reviews making fun of me and Miyazaki, I could not believe what my girlfriend said when From Software sent us a review copy of Elden Ring. Miyazaki, Shelby walks in holding that review copy as if Elden Ring wasn't the most anticipated game of my life, and she says to me, all cute, she says, can I play? And she did it! She wanted to redeem the code and play Elden Ring without me while I finished editing the Horizon video. No, Miyazaki, I looked my woman in the eye socket. I pulled it straight out.
I just said it, man.
I said. I'm just kidding. Can I play are the 3 best words a girl are the second best 3 words a girl can say. And in this case, were all the proof I needed that Elden Ring had reached unprecedented levels of hype like this.
You know, once you start, there's no going back.
I know.
This means total commitment. Once you begin the path, there is no leaving the path. Are you sure you're ready for that? I mean, really ready.
I guess so.
Maybe. We'll start tomorrow.
So, this isn't a girlfriend review of what it's like to live with someone who plays Elden Ring.
That'll be our next video.
This is a boyfriend review of what it's like to live with someone who finally decided to praise the sun.
Hi, excuse me. This video is sponsored by Soundcore, and I will tell you all about their brand new Liberty 3 Pro earbuds after Matt is done with this video.
Like millions of other filthy casuals, my girlfriend gave Elden Ring the honor of being the first From Software game to put her foolish ambitions to rest. I think this is the one. Oh no!
Put a face up!
Luckily, the debut open world design found in the lands between make it a place of nearly infinite opportunities for scrubs to get good.
Whee!
As opposed to From's previous titles, in which the relatively linear design would quickly lead scrubs to a dead-end street where a mandatory boss makes them feel less like they just spent $60 on Bloodborne and more like they were just mugged by Bloodborne. Elden Ring embraces the new community and Kutaku by offering them dozens of hours of quality content with zero pressure to overcome any obstacles they aren't ready for.
Absolutely not. No way.
But allowing beginners to progress at their own pace is not the only way From Software seems to have quietly settled the big debate over adding difficulty settings. Make no mistake, Elden Ring does have difficulty settings. You just won't find them in the game options. Instead, you'll find them in the gameplay options, i.e. the impressive amount of optional playstyles for little babies to explore. Oh, yourself, man. You're better than me. I am better than you, but I'm not here to gatekeep. What I've learned watching my girlfriend fall in love with telling enemies in Elden Ring while using methods a veteran player might call easy mode is that accessibility matters. And using spirit ashes, summoning NPCs, or procrastinating bosses to overlevel in the field do not compromise From Software's signature challenge, because stubborn masochists like myself also have a difficulty option to look at those things and say, no, I don't want to do any of that. The hard truth about what hard truly means is that when I demarred it on my first try using a Resident Evil 4 chainsaw, and Shelby demarred it on her 101st try using a souped-up jellyfish, it made her feel like this.
I'm not as strong as you.
But it made me feel like this.
No. You're strong.
Oh yeah, Margaret, eat my ass.
So, should you your less experienced significant other play Elden Ring? Yes, definitely. But it's my turn to roast Shelby for once, so let me tell you how I really feel. First of all, she got to play it every day for 4 days before it even released, while I had to edit a Beverly Hillbillies parody about Aloy in the other room.
I love it. Fun.
Of course, when she came to me in tears of joy, announcing that she'd beaten her first quote-unquote Dark Souls boss, the loving boyfriend in me said, I love you. Unfortunately, the toxic gamer in me just couldn't help himself and followed that up with, now sweetie, was it a boss with a cutscene though? Then when she said no, I regretfully made this face.
Why does that matter? What does that mean? Baby, I think I'm ready for Sekiro.
No, I wasn't gatekeeping what a real boss is. Yeah, I was gatekeeping what a real boss is. Dark Souls are hella good. Shelby hadn't even beat a boss with a cutscene before she started telling me how to play.
Guys, I'm like really smart now. You don't even know.
Honestly, when the moment finally arrived to play Elden Ring myself, she sat there telling me about being paired with Elf 2. Are you serious? I didn't know there was a button back here. Talking about
Don't panic, Will.
Are you serious?
I'm sorry.
Boy, I wish I knew that when I caught the memes.
I'm so sorry.
In my underwear. Something about,
Honestly, you probably can't be the true sentinel right now.
listen! I know more than you. Alright, and then the tree sentinel took me for about an hour. So I decided to show my woman how a real gamer guy just needs to farm a bunch of souls with what it takes. Upgrade a couple weapons at the smithing table and go right back to that tree sentinel like my powers have doubled since the last time we met. Then all a real gamer guy needs to do is say hi-yo and admit their girlfriend was right about the tree sentinel. In my defense, she treats everything like the tree sentinel. You ornery goats is all it takes for her to call in the cavalry for backup.
They catch us, they will rape us.
Boom. Roasted. Boyfriend reviews. In conclusion, Elden Ring is easily one of my favorite games of all time, for the same obvious reasons everyone else has. But more importantly, it's due largely in part to the efforts of From Software to make this masterpiece more inclusive to baby gamers who are back. Because going on Twitter and saying, this game just isn't for you, and that's okay, is real maidenless behavior. Instead, if your maiden is struggling with Elden Ring, try visiting her game world, looking at her deep in her hot pink mustache with these words of advice. Try finger butthole.
Alright guys, no two are alike, so why would you use earbuds that are one size fits all when you can have a truly custom experience? I use mine when I do all my household duties, as well as when I need to go outside and take care of the dog's duties. I especially like them when I'm knitting because there is no way I could work on my crafts with a big dangly wire in my way. If you want to get your hands on a brand new pair of these stunners,
It's gonna freaking melt. Awesome. Oh. Oh.
after he spent 40 hours being I take the new girlfriend, go to the new girlfriend, let's add a new girlfriend, better review girlfriend. Well, if that's you, you're in luck, because this isn't a review of Demon Soul, and definitely not a review of Dark Souls 3. This is truly a review of what it's like to live with someone who plays Demon Souls and Dark Souls 3 past midnight every day for 2 weeks straight. This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Last year, Sekiro entered Matt's top 5 games of all time, and entered my top 1 games by From Software. In that review, I praised it for improving upon everything that makes the Soulsborne series pretty tedious for a backseat gamer. First, its visuals were inspired by the vibrant colors of Japan, rather More players' Google advice. 10% of this game is staring at Sudoku menus while my boyfriend consults 16 open tabs of Extra Life, which brings us to Sekiro's fourth redeeming quality. Its plot wasn't told. And sometimes he'd grind through all of Bulgaria again to farm souls.
Wow, Linda. I'm sorry.
But he said, I know what you're thinking.
Really? Kind of your talent?
Then explained that in this fun Soulsborne, neither death nor rest will replenish his health pack. So he got a restocker for himself real quick for 20 minutes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And that's a bummer, because finally getting to an awesome-looking boss is the main thing I actually like about these games. Popular genre by basically doing this to gamers. The craziest part is that the worse a player does, the harder the game becomes.
Pick a select sword.
That knows fun.
You're dead to us in area already.
Yeah, if you die too many times in an area, the developers start adding extra enemies who are extra tough. And because my boyfriend took that personally, he'd walk right up to them like,
What do you want to do, huh? What do you want to do?
inevitably sending his world tendency and life into a downward spiral. Now, I wasn't there when World 4 fell to pure black tendency, spawning the black phantom known as Satsuki, but based on what I could hear from across the house, I choose this meme. Don't take my word for it, though. Let's roll the footage.
Dude, this guy's ridiculous. We gotta regroup here. Let me get myself. Look. Stuck? Is he stuck? Oh, yes! Yes, he's stuck! Eat a spice. Come out of there. Don't even think about it. Yes! If this guy... Okay, look at it. I don't think he's gonna get more than once, alright? Oh, no. Oh, no.
That went on for 2 hours. And even though I sent him multiple texts, he'd be like,
I didn't hear no bell.
well, the refusal to be beaten by a video game that makes Demon Souls so satisfying to a gamer, and so unsatisfying to a gamer's roommate. A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do, and sometimes reclaiming their pride by defeating the samurai in their Nintendo is what a man's gotta do, I guess.
Let's go. Yes. Die. Yes.
Don't get me wrong, I feel proud of and happy for my boyfriend as I drag him to bed every day.
I'm not allowed to stand up for myself. I thought this was an error.
Because in his mind, shutting down the PS, the only problem I have with it is that in reality, it looks like this.
See you tomorrow.
In conclusion, Blue Point Games have unsheathed a shiny, smooth, and sharp remake. Show off the cutting edge of PS5's system. However, despite being the latest, greatest from software experience, Demon Souls lacks the latest, greatest quality of life improvements that might have allowed impatient scrubs, such as me, to actually enjoy the intensely gratifying bullcrap and narratively fascinating gobbledygook. Plus, it's so good that the gamer you live with will immediately download any of the Souls games they haven't yet played and start the whole exciting process of overcoming the impossible all over again. In this case, it was Dark Souls 3, which is the longest, and has way harder bosses, and 2 DLCs. So, to end this highly anticipated episode of Girlfriend Reviews, I'd just like to say to my boyfriend and to Twitch chat, I know that after beating so many games, sometimes you need a game to beat you, but what is wrong with all you people? Are you all mad?
We're drinking beer, we're yelling at the TV, and we're making sticky gas. And that's boys' night. That's boys'
was mud. I want to leave because it smells. Lastly, when you have your Demon Souls voicemail, make sure your internet is safe and secure with NordVPN. A lot of us are working from home right now, so it's more important than ever to keep your data secure. When you use a VPN, you're browsing the internet privately by using a server somewhere else in the world. This can not only protect you from trackers, but give you access to awesome content in other countries on sites like Netflix. Some of the things we love about NordVPN are the easy peasy Chrome extension, super fast servers, and most importantly, their 30-day risk-free money-back guarantee. Luckily, NordVPN is offering a limited-time holiday deal. Every purchase of a 2-year plan gets you 68% off, plus 4 additional months free. Take control of your internet experience. Go to nordvpn.com/girlfriendreviews or use code girlfriendreviews at checkout so you can try it yourself and help out our channel. That's nordvpn.com/girlfriendreviews. Thanks, guys.
The last pick of the day, guys. Looks like the last video of the draft. So what do you guys got? That Andrew Thomas, 6th round pick for the Rangers, the 2 second rounders, the 5th round pick, and prospect Morgan Barron. Now, I should say that these 2 second rounders are conditional. The 1 second is the top 1st round pick, and the Rangers make the conference finals. And if that happens, the other 2nd round pick, I think it's 2023 opposed to 2022. So basically, that's how the trade starts. There's 2 second rounders, plus a 5th round pick, 2023, plus prospect Morgan Barron. I think it's like a 6th round pick, 2017. These are the prospects like 22, 23, top 9, as a new preview in the NHL. So, like I said, say the Rangers make the final. The 2022 second round pick, there was a 1st round pick, and they had the option to take the Blues second rounder, a 2nd rounder, 2023 to give that maybe more balance in the draft. I think it's really going to kind of balance the
generous.
after the deadline. So, they can get back and the top solid players, 27 years old, they're still relatively young. He's overall 1 year left at $2.5 million, so pending free agent. I'm guessing either he told them that he wanted to go agency, or he told them how much money he wanted, and they said no way, and they shipped him out. And they're currently not like a bad team, but also I guarantee to make the playoffs. They're kind of like a no man's land there, where they wanted a crazy run, they could make the playoffs, but can't go to the 9 to 10 or 11 in the West. So contract, he's a pretty solid player. Last week he came 39-55, great 93 about the same. Obviously, in that top 6, on of talent, Cycling, Connor, Dealer, like a lot of these players play with him as well. But if they have exposure, you find them in the top 6, especially his percentage of play. So, 6 round top there, with a 6 round pick, out in the world. So, it's Rangers to make the final, they get back to 1st round pick with everything else. It looks really good to them. So, right here, looks like he's obviously on the Rangers side. Here's the destination. Again, this was guys always on video.
What were you thinking when you signed Dimitri Orlov to 3 year 5.15? Just his defensive play on the back end. Billy, you can also play on the power play as well. And plus, he's a veteran leadership on his team too. And one of the sign of, and I'm talking sub is to his defensive partner. He's a good D player too. He can play PK, and he'll be really good at helping out Demko and the other guys. And the last signing he made was splash off the last 2 signings, Pierce Suter and Sean Monahan. Yeah, I'm hoping that Pierce Suter rotates his build. So.
They have a cop. I guess the game is terrible. Number 9 on the Rangers. I think that doesn't look too bad. It's just good for the Rangers. So thanks for guys for trying to
Monahan with deputy help on the PK. He can put it on the bottom 6.
Not the first, so obviously we're going to ask for like the higher end. Obviously, they'll say first. If they say no, we'll then forward it. I'm thinking of saying no here for the 1st and 2nd. and they do. So we'll switch back after 2 seconds, at which point I feel like they probably say yes. And kind of sort of like the flirty trade, that shows that the conditional thing is probably right on value line, where they're saying yes to the first, no to the second. So you're like in the middle there, the additional second is just coming first. So right now, they're in 2 seconds to get off the stick. Now we still have range signs, but maybe they say yes to this. They reject it, okay. So, it feels like, Jeff won this trade, getting a really good return from the next shot. I don't think it's going to be too long, guys. I want to look at one more trade in this one. The Colorado Avalanche got very like this, Montreal Canadiens, for second round pick and Justin Barron. I think Montreal Canadiens is amazing here. Obviously, Lefty Baseball is playing that count for the really good team right now, but their first guard from the really good outside. Here, Lefty is 26-29, medium top 9. He's probably more like, one, still, like I said, this time the guy is great. We have Barron, just got drafted first round 2020, played first round pick, but still, I need that to be an NHL defenseman. And on top of that, too, we got 2024 second round pick. So, again, the return there for like, a third line winger. Montreal did great. I do think they're retaining 50% on this deal for the Avalanche. And you gotta love this, guys. I'm taking Lehkonen off their team. So they're actually dropping in cap, and instead of Montreal being overly maxed side cap, if this trade goes through, I don't even know what to do. So I took my side cap off, guys. As you can see here, Trey County is so far on the Avalanche side. Honestly, it's like the most well-played trade I've seen yet in games, so like the deadline deal, like, that is crazy. Left-handed ACC is like a regular replacement forward. Second-round pick, Barron. A great return from Montreal. Obviously, they're going to say yes. After the deadline deal, soon after you look at the Avalanche, when it's healthy, obviously, we're going to probably know right now. Also, this is right on defense, but this team is going to look stacked. Especially that defense company is right back. They basically just got to play again. So, I'll let you guys this team, team wants to say they're the top deal with the Rangers. Also, here's the team to say win the deadline as well as the loser. Send in the comment section below. If you guys enjoyed this one, give that thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, throw it down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.
And that means I can eat it.
So I got up from a 3-hour nap after the trade deadline concluded. We had ourselves a Montreal Canadiens game where they lost in overtime. Curse you, Brett Marchand. But that was a very sick goal he scored at the end there. There still is one more trade, 2 more I guess. One more that actually happened and another one that did not happen and that we're currently reviewing right now, that I still wanted to make videos on to end off this weird, crazy run of 26 videos in 3 days or whatever the heck it was. Let's take a look at the Max Domi trade, which sends him over to the Carolina Hurricanes from the Columbus Blue Jackets in a 3-team swap. Take a look at this. The Blue Jackets have received themselves. Okay, if I cook a mess and it works, does it look like that? Okay, it's okay. We can slide this over like that, make it look a little bit better. The Columbus Blue Jackets receive themselves defenseman prospect Aiden Breshchuk. The Hurricanes are receiving Max Domi and Tyler Inamoto. And then the Florida Panthers, who are retaining a quarter of Max Domi's salary, are receiving themselves Igor Korshkov and a 2022 6 from Columbus. So, the way this deal is going to work out, Max Domi and the contract that he does have. 50% of the salary will be retained by the Columbus Blue Jackets. He gets sent over to Florida, where they retain another 50%, so 25%, because 50% of 50% is 25. And then the Carolina Hurricanes will only be paying out 25% of that salary. The total cap hit is $5.3 million a season, and so the Carolina Hurricanes are only going to be paying 2.6. At least that's my understanding of the entire thing. Okay, no, not 2.6, 1.325. Salary retained by Columbus is 2.6. Salary retained by the Florida Panthers is 1.3. So there you go. Cap friendly clears up the website. Elite prospects, you guys kind of have to fix that. That's not really accurate. But either way, Max Domi is now going over to the Carolina Hurricanes. And I saw a lot of Hurricanes fans kind of freaking out about this at first, saying, okay, what the heck are we doing? Why are we getting this guy? Locker room cancer, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, still got to acknowledge the Hurricanes are going out there and they're trying to make themselves a very extended run in the postseason. It cost them Igor Korshkov, who's a guy that really wasn't making an impact on this team due to the fact that he's playing in Lokomotiv Yaroslavl in the KHL. Now, I'm not really too sure whether or not Korshkov is going to find himself on NHL ice within the next few seasons, but either way, the 25-year-old 6'4" forward is now part of the Florida Panthers system, so if he does come back to the NHL, he'll probably suit up over there. He did have one season played in the Toronto system, split between the NHL and the AHL, but he has been a pretty solid middle six locomotive forward since then. You have yourselves also Carolina giving up Aiden Rushchuk, as we noted. He is a defensive prospect, pretty small, 5'11", 187, but he's really mobile and he's really aggressive. He likes to go out there and hit guys. He's a defense-first kind of player. He had 8 points in 37 games played at Boston College this season after being half a point a game, over half a point a game with the NTDP last year. He was taken in the third round of the 2021 NHL entry draft by Carolina. So the Blue Jackets, I get it. You guys don't want to miss out on Domi and the profile he provides. He was a pretty good player, 32 points in 53 games, but he was an inspiring UFA to be. There was an entire conversation to have about whether or not you would overpay for this guy, should you want to keep him and everything. So just to get something back in Aiden Russia is okay. It's baseline level okay in my opinion. Also, though, the Hurricanes are receiving not only Domi, but Tyler Inamoto as well, who is a very defensive shutdown guy playing in the Wisconsin system. He was drafted by Florida back in 2017, 6'2", 194 as a left-handed D-man, but as you can see by the points, this guy has really not put it together offensively, and that's really not the game that he provides anyway. I watched a lot of Wisconsin tape because of Cole Kafka and Dylan Holloway the past few years, and Inamoto was always there, just doing what it is that Inamoto does, which is shutting down plays, doing his own thing in the defensive zone, not really contributing offensively. It's not really a flaw on his part, it's just how he plays the game. And so, 2 points in 26 games for the Wisconsin Badgers this season might seem like a very bad number, but the numbers themselves are not what you're looking for when you scout Tyler Inamoto's name. And yes, his name is Tyler Inamoto, which sounds a lot awfully like Kyler Yamamoto, but they're not the same. They're not even spelled the same remotely, they just kind of sound similar. So for Columbus, they're ultimately trading away Max Domi and a 6th-round pick. The 6th is going to Florida for retaining salary at Domi, and Domi is going to Carolina. You have yourselves the Florida Panthers, who give away Tyler Inamoto and their cap space, and then you have, of course, the Carolina Hurricanes giving away Aiden Rushchuk as finished up. But Kotkaniemi, take a look at the profile he does possess. $4.82 million a season for the next 8 years until 2030 with a modified no-trade clause kicking in 2025-2026 for a player whose career high in points was achieved in his rookie season, 34.79 games. This season he's on pace for 31 points in 79 games, playing on a Carolina team that is much better than the Montreal Canadiens have been, aside from, of course, the part where they went to the finals. Is this contract a good contract? 4.82, locked up for 8 years for a max 30-point-ish NHL center. Now, Kotkaniemi is only 21, so he will get better as time goes on. He's not going to be a 30-point center for the entirety of his career. But what exactly is the ceiling with KK? Does he have that 70, 80-point potential that some people thought he did back when he was drafted because his first season was better than Alexander Barkov's? Or does he max offer sheet all those years ago? Kotkaniemi getting re-offer sheeted, $6 million, the Canadiens not matching it, and now there's this contract on the books for $4.8 million a season. If you're Montreal and you had the option to re-sign Kotkaniemi till 2030 at $4.82 million a year for 8 years, would you have done that? Let me know in the comments your thoughts about this entire thing, because I get it. A lot of people love to go out there and hate on KK, talk about why KK is good or bad or whatever, but like, there still is so much time to go with this development that it really could go anywhere. If the Carolina Hurricanes are able to go out there and finalize what it is Kotkaniemi's potential was back in 2018, then realistically, like, this could be seen as a steal. Like, if you get Kotkaniemi playing at a level that's at or better than a Barkov, which I don't want to say is realistic, it's probably not, but a lot of people back in this time frame in 2018-19 were sort of saying that because he had more points than the guy. If you're able to do that, and you have this guy signed until 2030 at $4.8 million, like, that's fantastic. Fan-freaking-tastic. It's not guaranteed, and I would say it's not even likely, but it is a possibility. Therefore, I do think it's noteworthy to bring up at the very least. So you can let me know in the comments your thoughts about Kotkaniemi and Domi.
win you $30,000 this basketball season? Just pick who you think will win each week's basketball games and lock it in. It's that easy, and it's absolutely free. Test your instincts at betwaybigpick.com.
Today, let's talk about some of the worst weapons in Elden Ring. Now, the thing about this game, and really the Dark Souls games before it, is that if you really want to, you can do something with pretty much every games, and that's especially true in Elden Ring. With the new Ashes of War system, it's a cinch to swap out affinities for weapons and make them stronger or give you better skills. So nearly every weapon in this game can be pretty powerful if you take the time to customize it. So at the end of the day, worst weapon is really just a matter of opinion, and that's what this list is. It's our opinions here. If you disagree, that's okay. That's what this is all about. Let's get started off with number 10, the flail. Here's a gimmick weapon that is about as bare bones as it gets. Found really early in the game in a chariot in the game from ruin. This weapon has pretty weak strength and dexterity scaling and pretty low standard damage, and a pretty pathetic skill called spinning change. You just spin the flail around in front of you. The range is not good, and it's not that strong. It offers you little protection. It's just, I mean, look at it. It's not that impressive, like, at all. Pretty much like every other flail in the game, fills the same role, but better, making the regular old flail kind of a joke. Of course, you can always swap out the ashes for something better and upgrade this thing to improve its scaling, but, you know, at the end of the day, you've got a pretty slow weapon that just doesn't play to a very many build strengths. It's hardly the worst weapon ever, but it just doesn't really serve a function to us. The weapon that's just there, and that's it. Next over at number 9, the short spear. Now this weapon, which seems to be primarily used by the chunkiest enemies in the game, is another starter weapon that's quickly outclassed by they are higher than trying to use this thing. It's not going to take you long to hit those requirements. Basically, what makes this weapon so bad is right there in the name. It's a spear that's short. The only reason you want a spear is to hit enemies from further away. So having a short spear just kind of totally defeats that purpose. Like the flail, you can of course put on some better ashes and get this weapon a slightly more usable state, but there's little reason to do so, and there are so many other spears that fill the same role that are just flat out better than this one. Next over at number 8, let's talk about the Briar Gray Shield, because we've been talking about early game weapons so far, so we're going to jump way further into the game to the Shaded Castle. This weapon is dropped by the boss of that area and has one big glaring flaw to it. It's a great shield that doesn't block all physical damage. Most regular shields manage to block all damage, but this gigantic power shield that weighs 9.5 in equipment load, nah, it can only manage 82%. Sure, like if you wanted to use it as a weapon, it's got a pretty strong passive bleed effect. But who actually does use a shield as a weapon? Okay, this is Elden Ring and a Souls game. I know people definitely do out there, but for most people, they're just going to use a sword or something to cause bleed buildup, not their shield. For us and a lot of players out there, a shield with anything less than 100% physical defense might as well not exist because we're not using it here. I mean, especially with this weapon coming so late in the game, well after players have already found tons of shields that give them full protection and more benefits. You know, some people are probably using it, but we know we certainly are not. Next over at number 7, the torch. Now like a shield, this is another thing you can use as a weapon if you really want to, but its main purpose lies elsewhere. The only reason most people who want one of these things is to illuminate dark areas, and it is really good for that at least. As a weapon though, it's pretty subpar. Yeah, it might be useful for doing some fire damage early in the game, but you know, a little bit of fire and barely any physical damage isn't going to cut it for long. But let's be honest here. Nobody is using this as their primary weapon. As a way to light up caves is great, or at least until you're in a lantern. With a proper lantern, you really have no use for the torch anymore. So it's not a great weapon, and at certain points, it stops being a useful tool. Now we're glad the torch is in the game because it still is kind of fun to use in specific use cases and examples, but it really serves not a lot of purpose, and for that we're going to still count it as one of the worst. Now over at number 6, the Serpent Hunter. Now this is a weapon that's just great for one thing. Fighting one boss, and pretty much bad for everything else. It's got a skill that works great against that boss, but uses anywhere else, and nothing happens. You can't even swap out the ashes for anything else, so there's little reason to ever use it outside of the boss fight.
Like a lot of Souls games, this is a thing. It's just another cool weapon in that one moment, but in every other instance, it's just a total piece of garbage. Next over at number 5, okay, enough fan complaints. Let's talk about just some early game crap. The fourth hatchet, which is a weird looking little hand axe used by the dungeon imps, just isn't very good. It's another weapon, a trace power for some kind of blood loss buildup effect, but with so many weapons that cause bleeding, there's really no reason to use this over something else that's more effective. Well, unless you want to run around as like an imp, I guess. There's not a whole lot to say about this one that we haven't already said about previous weapons. It's just an early game thing that gets quickly outclassed in pretty much every way. It doesn't do much to compensate for that. You know, other than it looking pretty weird. I feel like this one just ends up sitting in everybody's inventory. Now over at number 4, the Staff of the Guilty. This is a weird one. If you're using a staff, most players are going to gravitate towards something that scales with intelligence, because staffs are primarily for casting sorceries. Incantations usually use faith and are cast using seals. Sorceries usually use intelligence.
Is that 3 stars in a row for Denko?
But there's one, and only one staff, that doesn't scale with intelligence at all. The Staff of the Guilty. I guess, for lore reasons, only scales with strength and faith, with nothing towards intelligence. This thing doesn't cast incantations. You can still only use it to cast sorceries, and so you still need to have the stat requirements to cast those spells, but it won't boost their power at all. Instead, it'll give you a boost to certain thorn sorceries, and it also causes blood loss buildup, something it seems like half the weapons in the game do it better than this one does. It also boosts specific thorn sorceries, ones that don't have an intelligence requirement. So I guess if you really want to use those very specific spells, it's good for that. But this thing is so niche, it's hard to call it a good weapon at all, especially when so many other staffs give you more substantial boosts for your spell casting.
Welcome to Dash Pass from DoorDash. With unlimited orders, no delivery fees, and perks at your entree, meet salty scour and the corner store at almost any hour. Subscribe to Dash Pass for no delivery fees, exclusive deals, plus savings on every order.
Now down to number 3, the Soldier's Crossbow. There's so much that's bad about this weapon. For one, it's worse than any other crossbow in the game. It just straight up does less damage. Its stat requirements are low, but are only a tiny bit lower than the next best crossbow in the game, so that doesn't do much. On top of that, it's honestly just kind of hard to get. The only way to grab one of these things is to kill the crossbowmen guarding Stormdale Castle, and the chances that they'll actually drop one is really damn small. They're just much easier to find and straight up better crossbows you can get, even right from the start of the game, making this weapon pretty useless. It's rare, it's weaker than everything else, and there's nothing special about it whatsoever. It's just an all-around, not very good crossbow. If it's the only one you manage to find, then yeah, it's fine, but once you get something better, then there's just no reason to use a soldier's crossbow ever again. Throw it in the garbage. Down to number 2, what's worse than a torch? It's a torch on a pole. Yes, a torch pole. You can't even use this thing like a standard torch. It doesn't let you lift it over your head like a normal torch, so it's basically just a mediocre spear that does a little fire damage. It does look a little cool, but the pathetic damage output and the fact that it really has no utility as a torch sinks this weapon to be near the very bottom of its list. We just found ourselves having no use for this thing at all. Now down to number 1, you guessed it, the Rickety Shield. Here it is, the weapon that's more of a joke than an actual piece of equipment. It's got a pathetic 50% guard for physical attacks, and it's even worse for everything else. It's tiny, it gives you barely any additional poise, its attack even sucks. I mean, it's called a Rickety Shield, so no surprise if this thing stinks, but here's the description in-game, which really says it all. A creepy old wooden shield, circular in shape, roughly reinforced with vines or some such. There are countless other shields available on better made. This piece of scrap isn't worth the effort of equipping. Yeah, the game literally says that this thing isn't worth equipping. In a game where pretty much everything is at least a little viable, this shield stands head and shoulders above everything else as being basically useless. Of course, I'm sure there are some brave players out there who use this thing just for the bragging rights, or there's some super duper crazy hidden secret to be unlocked. But an intentionally useless weapon is still a useless weapon, and they don't get much worse than this Rickety Shield. It's basically this game's version of a wooden shield from Bloodborne, and just about as useless. Those are 10 of what we thought are some of the worst weapons in Elden Ring. I'm sure there's going to be lots of debates and arguing about. In Elden Ring, you are nothing without your weapons. So here are some that you should not miss. Now just know, there are a ton of weapons in this game, so narrowing them down to just 10 for a list is tough. It's really tough. Just keep in mind that these are our personal favorites. They're not necessarily the end-all, be-all weapons in the game. Sometimes those and build guides and stuff take months to show up. These are just weapons that we really like, and also some that are just generally helpful at certain points in the game. So let's get started off with number 10. Let's talk about the Twin Blade plus Bloodflame Blade. Have you ever tried to use a double-sided lightsaber in a Souls game? At least in one that's not called Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order? Well, now you can. This hilarious, weird combo was discovered by Reddit user Night Paradox, who used a Twin Blade, which can be found pretty early in the game in the Dragonburg Ruins, with the Bloodflame Blade incantation, which is dropped from a scarab near the Rose Church in the Liurnia region. Now, if you've got the requisite stat requirements, you use the Twin Blade and cast the Bloodflame incantation to give your sword a proper lightsaber look and just go nuts. It's easy to make the sword combo look awesome with a few flips, but really, it's just to look cool, and that's about it. You know, the actual Bloodflame power doesn't last that long. Still, their casting the spell kind of looks like they're powering on a lightsaber, and it's just an all-around cool weapon and magic combo that's not too hard to get your hands on. Next, over at number 9, let's talk about Roger's Rapier. Now, if you're going for mostly dexterity-based weapons, then this Rapier is something to get for a few reasons. For one, it starts off being a +8 weapon, so it's already been upgraded a lot by the time you get it, and it's totally free and pretty easy to get. All you have to do to get your hands on it is to talk to Roger in the church in Stormvale Castle. Keep talking to him until you run out of new dialogue, then just keep going through the area until you take out Godric, the boss of the area. Roger should appear in the Round Table Hole now. And if you tell him you killed Godric, he'll reward you with his sword. And the fact that it's already upgraded so much is really the best thing about it. Otherwise, it's a pretty standard rapier, but all those upgrades really do make a difference and give you some leg up. It's a powerful weapon with low stat requirements that's great for a dex magic skill. So get it if you can. Now next at number 8, let's talk Lestat's Glintstone Staff. Found in Celia, town of sorcery, after killing the bosses there, this staff is an awesome weapon for a simple reason. Its intelligence scaling is huge. The requirements are no joke though. You've got to have 52 intelligence just to use this thing, so it's really only good for this dedicated sorcerer. But if you are one, then this thing is absolutely essential. Even though Celia is found in Caelid, which is, kind of a dangerous place, the actual town itself isn't that difficult to get through, and as long as you know how to remove the barriers, which isn't hard, you just have to light up a few towers, then you're good to go. On top of being powerful by default, this thing actually enhances your spells and makes them more powerful. It costs more to actually cast the stuff, but it's a noticeable increase. Basically, if you want to use a lot of sorceries, get this staff. Next, over at number 7, let's talk great swords. First, the Grafted Blade Greatsword. Now, if you want an example of a truly epic weapon in Elden Ring that can be obtained relatively early, then look no further than this monstrosity. It's literally a pile of swords grafted together into one colossal blade thing, with the strength requirements to match the size. You need a whopping 40 strength to be able to properly wield this thing. So for most people, it's going to be a long, long time before you ever have a chance to actually use it. But even at the end of the game, it's like one of our favorite bread and butter weapons if you just want to smash some enemies with a giant sword club thing. Now, the funny thing about it is that it's actually one of the first weapons you get, too, depending on how you play. You can get it off the Leonine Misbegotten boss in Castle Morn. Your boss is actually pretty easy to take out fairly early in the game as long as you make it through the castle keep okay. I guess they just wanted to tease you with the kind of crazy weapons you can get in this game because nobody's actually using this thing that early in the adventure. And yeah, it's obviously also an homage to the Iron Throne from Game of Thrones, so it's a pretty cool little Easter egg on top of that. Oh, and speaking of greatswords, the Starspurge greatsword. This thing is so good that it just has to be mentioned. You get it from the finger the Remembrance drops from the Radon boss, but it's crazy good. They've got a pretty steep strength requirement, and its scaling isn't the best, but this thing is so naturally strong that it makes up for it, and its unique properties make it even better. Its ability, called Starcaller Cry, is just nuts. First, it sucks in any nearby enemies, which you use as an opportunity to attack, or you can follow it up with a massive explosion that does impressive damage. So its skill is great, the weapon is good, and to really top things off, if you switch to two-handed, you can dual wield two of these things, just like the boss could. Running around with two swords nearly as big as you looks ridiculous, but it's nothing if not effective. Radon is a bastard of a boss fight, but he's worth taking down just for this. It's that good. Next over at number 6, the Sword of St. Trina. This is a sword with pretty low stat requirements that requires you to brave a pretty dangerous area, but otherwise it isn't too hard to get. It's another weapon where ability is the most impressive thing about it. While its scaling kind of sucks, that skill really makes up for it in a lot of ways. Now, why is that? It's because the skill is a hilariously powerful Mists of Slumber. This ability that does exactly what it sounds like. It spreads out this mist in a wide area that causes any enemy trapped in it to just fall asleep. Now, once they're snoozing, it's incredibly easy to just pick enemies off, making this one of the best weapons to use against large groups of enemies. It's not something that's going to work on every enemy, so it's definitely more of a situational weapon, but for the things it does work on, it's great. So instead of wasting your resources on expensive sleeping pots, just have this weapon equipped for the situations where you want an enemy to pass out. It's incredibly good for that, and it's not really great for anything else. Next over at number 5, having a good bow is important for certain situations in Elden Ring, and you don't come across them too often. Pretty early in the game, you can easily use this, the horn bow, for the rest of the game if you want. Its scaling isn't great, but its base damage and its unique passive ability to do magic damage make it so you'll always be dealing pretty good damage to enemies, regardless of their defenses. To find this thing, just look under the bridge to the Hallowhorn ground in the underground river area, which is found early on in the Limgrave region. You get to this specific part from an elevator near the minor Earth tree in this wood. Now, it's one of the few things that's not particularly well hidden, but easy to miss. We went through a huge chunk of this game without a bow and only found this thing much later by accident. So don't make the same mistake that some of us did. It's really a pretty great weapon that you'll want to hold on to, and it can make a lot of tough encounters on certain mobs much easier if you use it right.
Sometimes when working on your home, you may need to apply safety animals. If you have leftover flammable or used pesticides or gasoline, drop them off for free and safe disposal at a recycling facility. One more and try their households.
What do you think you can do?
Aren't you learning German?
The picture expired, so I stopped.
But the charge is here. You can be my lap as you know. Trial is turned into a paid subscription.
Oh, what's so helpful?
It's no price. That is helpful.
Next over at number 4, Face Build. Haven't got a lot of love on this list, so here's a weapon for you guys. The Coated Sword is found pretty late in the game in the capital city. You actually find it in the real round table hold, and it isn't hard to get, but this is an area that's lost off until you beat at least 2 shard bearers. So it's an area that'll take a while before you really get to explore it. Still, this weapon is so good that it's worth the wait. It's basically this game's version of a lightsaber. A sword made of runes that has an awesome ability to completely bypass shields of any kind. That's what makes this thing so great. How it just blows through any and all of them. It's awesome. It's fantastic. Now, you need a pretty high faith stat to use it, so this one is basically for faith-based magic users only. But for anyone who has that build, this is a great weapon to look for. Cool as hell looking, and it's shockingly powerful. And if you're far enough in the game, it's not too hard to get. Now, next at number 3, let's talk Moray's Executioner's Sword. This is found pretty late in the game by beating the boss of the Shaded Castle in the Alphys region. This greatsword is devastatingly powerful on top of having an awesome special weapon skill called Dancing Blade, which sends out your sword forward in like a corkscrew attack before spinning like crazy. It's a powerful ability that can destroy enemies from long range. But the one downside to this thing is that it's a very high arcane requirement. The arcane stat is basically like luck. So most people aren't going to have 23 points put in arcane by the time they find this thing. That's the biggest issue with it. But as a weapon, it's a lot of fun to use, and it looks cool as hell on top of that. You can't quite do all the crazy stuff the boss did with this weapon, but you can get pretty close. It's a sword that can fight enemies on its own, as a red dimension just for that. Now at number 2, let's talk Moonveil. It's a katana that's perfect for
dex or intelligence builds, and it's found in the Guile Tunnel, right outside of Fort Guile in Caelid, and is dropped by the boss there. Now for a katana, this is a weapon that requires some investment in intelligence as well as dexterity. You need 23 intelligence and 18 dexterity just to use this thing. So even though it's possible to get out here early in the game, you'll need to build your character a little before you can properly use it. With both dex scaling and intelligence scaling, you can put out some really good damage with this thing, but what really makes it great is its weapon skill called Transient Moonlight. It's a move that you can perform very quickly, which also shoots out a wave of light, making it a powerful tool to fight certain enemies. Any close-range weapon with a range attack, but the speed and power of this particular weapon's special attack is really noteworthy. Now, number one, let's talk the Dark Moon Greatsword. Now, this weapon, modeled after the famous Moonlight Greatsword that appears in basically every From fantasy game, going all the way back to King's Field, it's absolutely worth hunting down, if only for bragging rights. Its special skill, called, no surprise here, Moonlight Greatsword, is incredibly powerful, but actually using this weapon isn't easy, as it's got a shockingly high intelligence requirement. So even though it's like this gigantic sword, you gotta be a mage to actually use it. That's not the only thing holding this weapon back. It's also incredibly hard to get, requiring you to play through a long and convoluted quest with a ton of steps that all revolve around assisting Rena the Witch. So it's complicated and long. There's just no way we can really even summarize what you have to do to get it here. So just look up the details if you're really curious. This is a quest worth playing, though, and it's actually required if you want to get to some of the most secret parts of the game. There's even a boss or two locked behind it, so it's a quest well worth pursuing, even if you don't care about getting this awesome weapon. But you should. It's sick. In the right hands, this thing is devastating. It's the ultimate From software weapon, and you definitely shouldn't miss. Those are some awesome weapons that we like. We got some bonus ones that we think are worth mentioning as well. First, Bloodhound's Fang, because you can get it fairly early on if you pay attention, and it's got this cool special attack dodge type move that can be really useful. Also, the Nox Flowing Hammer and the Nox Flowing Sword. Just look at these things. They're weapons that twist around like crazy when you use their special ability. They're stretchy weapons. They're like weird as hell. How effective they are, we don't really know, but they sure are cool looking. The One-Eyed Shield is worth highlighting. It shoots fireballs. It's ridiculous looking and not super useful, but it's fun to mess around with. And the Inferno Crozier, this is a giant hammer, strong enough on its own, but if you run out of FP and use its special ability, then you get this hilarious animation where your dude runs around with the hammer in front of them like they're using a vacuum cleaner or something, and you can do this as long as you hold the button down. It's not that useful, but it's fun. Also, the Meteorite Staff, just because it's a very good early game staff, you can run into Caelid and get it quick. While you can't upgrade it, it has S scaling right out of the gate, so it'll get you through until mid-game. But those are some weapons we wanted to talk about. Elden Ring is really cool, and there's so much more to talk about, so expect more videos soon. But if you like this, maybe it helped you out. Click the like button, all you gotta do. We would very much appreciate that. But, as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
This is the future in a Ford Edge built for you. A future where you're the game changer and the go-getter. Bring on the future and get this great offer on the 2022 Ford Edge. Only at your local Ford store.
Where can help your business be everywhere at once? With tools that all connect together, so you can focus on shaping how you'll do business next.
There are a lot of ridiculous items for the PlayStation. But we actually already mentioned one called Engineer Impossible Social with PS4. On that one, we talked about Mario Kart 2, Crash Bandicoot Remastered, Final Fantasy 9, DMC5, Wolfenstein 2, Hyper Light Drifter, Friday the 13th, Iron River, Elder Scrolls Online, and Encrypted Metro Dancer. But those are hardly the only possibly hard trophies to get on PlayStation systems, and in fact, pretty much all the games we're talking about on here aren't just as hard as those games were. Difficulty is a subjective thing, but I don't think anyone will disagree. The getting to play them on these games requires a level of skill and dedication that few players will ever be able to reach. I hope to develop Humanity 10 of the hardest five. Starting off at number 10 is Crash Bandicoot 4, a recent but infinite game. Crash Bandicoot 4 is very challenging. It looks like a pretty easy platform, but don't let its colorful art style suggest a world with you. This game does not lack that. Just beating it normally is no joke, but getting 100% completion is straight up nuts. Probably two of the hardest to get trophies require you to earn all of the platinum tile rounds, and once you get all the M70 circuit relics in the game, the time trials are an ordeal by themselves. In the older games, you get away with the gold, but not here. You have to get the platinum on every stage, and many of these require 2 certain times to get the platinum relics. The N60 circuit relics are really annoying too. They require you to play through every level without dying once while breaking all the crates. This is a game with sometimes very long stages with boxes near the end that are easily missable, so if you miss one during that automatic scrolling sequence, then you have to restart the entire level over again. And that's on top of tedious stuff like tensional flashback tapes and inverted mode, which is just a regular game but inverted, sometimes with annoying filters over everything. This platinum is incredibly tough to get, but in comparison to many of the other platinum trophies, it's actually not that bad. Doesn't mean that this game isn't incredibly hard, but somehow everything else on here is actually worse. Moving on to number 9 is Ninja Gaiden 6 and 2. The Ninja Gaiden games are just no joke. Finishing the game on standard difficulty is pretty difficult, but if you want to platinum it, then you really have to go above and beyond. This one is one of those platinums that forces players to play through the game multiple times, according to this guide on the Ancestral Spirit. Typically, you're going to have to beat at least 7 times if you want to get a platinum, which is excessive. The achievement for beating the game on the map is difficult. It's pretty wild all by itself, but this is difficult more basic strategy or like half the enemies in the game have sometimes gravity, so good luck with that. The absolute worst thing about getting the platinum in this game are the achievements themselves. There's 35 in total, and while some can be finished with an AI partner, certain ones are completely impossible to do without a friend. I have a friend that has a similar skill level to yours, they just want these chances to finish them. So, no matter how good you are at the game, unless you find someone else who's almost equally as good and just doesn't help you out, there's still no way you can do this. It's bad enough when you can have one person do that, but this one wants two. That number 8 is man. Like, most of the time, my people, this is another game with one truly brutal challenge that stops most players dead in their tracks. Actually, getting the platinum in this game is completely impossible. Now their Rockstar shut down the servers, but at least at one time it was legitimately possible. But it wasn't. This game has to be games like the game on hard, it's multiplayer grind, but the real challenge is that you are finished where you have to do the game, and you are finished hard or difficult. The standard for your game is a very tough setup. Mode starts with level 1, and you have to kill enemies to add time to yourself. If you die once, you start the whole thing again. And remember this thing is pretty fun stuff, so you rock stop, starting, and then killing the punches that are there, going to Hardcore only makes one change, but it's very big. You have to play the entire game playing this trial mode without dying once. If you die, you restart the entire game from the start. There's pretty much after the game perfect. You only get through this by memorizing enemy placement and game color take up locations. Because I mean, literally one bad encounter, hours of lost progress. Basically, if you wanted to platinum back then, you had to get a speedrunner whether you liked it or not. Moving on to number 7, Wipeout Omega Collection, one of the all-time toughest platinums to get, and the PlayStation exclusive comes from this game. Racing games often have a lot of it there, but you are as fast, disoriented as Wipeout games while also being brutally difficult. So it really takes a certain kind of player to do it. If you don't have split-second reaction time and almost stereotypical focus, there's no way you're getting achievement. Period. Get support in time trial, especially if you add gold medal one. Because the time requirements as a kid is just brutal. It'll take hours and hours, especially in some single class, and the smallest imperfection.
Oh, yes, please.
It's not Iron Man, yes.
In New York.
Difficult times that will be totally impossible to do with players. And let's be frank, for some long-time players too, the worst of them are these developer times set by a guy named Zico, which you better know this game is otherwise matching their own super natural. It's impossible for many players. There are a few minor tricks that can make this achievement a little easier, but only just a little. This is one of those trophies that requires a level of skill in the game that few people ever actually develop. It's nuts. And number 6
Hierarchy of Elite. A relatively new game that just doesn't mess around with difficulty. Aliens, fires, and elite trophies, keep the game on extreme, and then insane difficulties are exactly what they are labeled. Extreme and insane. To even have a chance on insane difficulty, you need a minimum of 4 maxed out players. They gotta be experts at the game, and they gotta work together in perfect harmony. Basically, you need an actual elite fire team if you want to get the trophy. That's how hardcore it is. So unlike Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 that requires 2 players to be experts in the game, this one needs 4 experts. I mean, at least the rule most fresh and Google finds it's easier to get online and find other people to play with, but still, expect a lot of trial and error in the game of many new games. Because when they call this difficulty insane, they are not joking.
And number 5 is Blaster. It is a game that I've never heard of. This game a lot of people on PSN profiles like the hardest Blaster because it's notoriously difficult. It's not just one of the points of scale. You have to do certain achievements like this 5 medals that are important. Yeah, death with medals is voiced out game. The guy really got speed run in a minute. You gotta be small here and straight up. Right up the hard. The hardest is the guy that falls. Speed run where you have to 100 on your steps. Like this couple of deaths will be an on that. And it's infamous among PSN profile proteins. This is the one of the most channels. And these are people who do really look down this stuff. If these guys think touching is one of the hardest ever, I'm inclined to believe them.
Craving your next adventure? With Avion, get the flights you want at the points you expect, even at the last minute. Switch to RBC Avion and get 35,000 welcome points, enough to fly virtually anywhere in Canada and the US.
Moving on to number 4 is Tetris Effect, another one where the roadblock is flat, and this is a single trophy. The trophy is titled Seriously, which requires the players get an access rank for every single stage of the journey mode. High-level Tetris play is really jumping off. And this game expects absolute mastery if you want to continue with the possibility of getting an access rank on a stage. Now, there's a reason this trophy is called Seriously, after all. Just to give you an example of how hard this is, a PlayStation trophy using Intelligence managed to just climb up by playing the game for about 320 hours. They talk about times where the really fellows just playing better, and they literally had to train their brain to get faster at Tetris, which is a lot to ask just to get a 500 trophy in a video game. Tetris Effect is one of those games that's easy to get into, but once you get the 500 trophy, you'll feel it might as well be a brick wall. And number 3 is Star Ocean, The Last Hope. For whatever reason, random JRPGs decided to go completely insane. The Star Ocean games are, as they're an odd series, there's like a ton of weird little secrets and systems to investigate, learn about, and ultimately master. Like, even compared to your standard JRPG, there's a lot going on. And doing anything is pretty much impossible on one playthrough, but of course, that's what the game wants to do. Finish the request, get all the weapon data, create every possible item, get all the options, character names, and oh yeah, open every single test in the game. All this stuff is also usually visible, like it's up there with Final Fantasy X2 with the amount of small things you can do. So if you want to get into somebody, you pretty much have to follow a guide exactly. Otherwise, you're just going to spend another 100 hours playing the game again to make sure you access everything. And on top of that, they expect you to beat the game. They loaded the RPG a minimum of 3 times the difficulty level, which is by itself a ridiculous time. That's one of the things that makes it so hard. None of the achievements are actually all that hard to finish, but it's also a big waste of time that very few people will have the patience to get the platinum. The PlayStation Trophy guide with Star Ocean, The Last Hope, and the Platinum at a ridiculous 450,000 plus hours if you want to finish this time. That number is pretty tough. And number 2 is Street Fighter V. Now, there are a few games that purely skill-focused in fighting games, so it only makes sense for these games to have like
Sam Reinhardt is with World War era. And he fits into top 6 nice.
There's the Let's Fight Someone Strong, which is as simple as you can read cool the season rank
back with Tower Rickety survival mode on difficulty. Hell, the first one, Let's Fight from the Front, it's simple sounding, like it's not complex to do the thing, it's just hard, unless you're like a Street Fighter god. This is a long-running series with a lot of very talented players out there, so if you want to maintain a steady toe-to-toe with the best, you're going to need to put in some serious practice. Golden League is the highest level of Street Fighter 5 play, and getting there, you're pretty much in the absolute top-tier players. While that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be good enough to win tournaments, you've got to be able to hang with the players that do. The other trophies, Max Hell, seems like it wouldn't be that hard to experience, but it actually might be worse. Every survival mode, you have to beat 100 fights back to back, and on how difficult that is fighting opponents that are basically reading your inputs and playing your perfectly. To make matters worse, you have to do it online, so if the game servers ever time out or go down, you immediately lose all your progress, and you have to start over. So on top of being really good at the game, if you want this trophy, you also have to be kind of lucky, which is not a good combo. And finally, at number 1, it is Gran Turismo 5. One of the very few games to ever get a 10 out of 10 difficulty on PSN profiles and PlayStation trophies. Gran Turismo 5 with PS3 is considered by the community to be one of the hardest games to find ever, for one simple reason: the time trials are just. And that's really all there is to it. If you want to find
Oh my god, hello!
License test, and event, which doesn't sound easy, and doing it is easier said than done. It took some people nearly 10 years to get the platinum game. That's how ridiculously hard some of these times are, and even though the servers shut down, it's not possible to get the platinum anymore without doing some strength and shady stuff. The time trials in this game are still legendarily hard, but they deserve a special mention. When people are seriously suggesting that they should add an 11 as well, just because of this one game, that's probably going to say second if I kind of. That's all we say.
I may have to do a potential traitor in New York at the deadline with those 2 players on the block. Miller would be a great addition to the squad.
Espresso every time. They say it takes about 6 seconds to make a first impression.
Oh my god, I can't wait to fucking play out of the rain, dude.
Elden Ring is a sprawling, incredible game with tons to see. Like, for instance, did you know you can completely miss a bunch of the bosses in the game? Yeah, Typos is found today on Game Race the 10 best optional bosses out of the game. Now, this is, of course, going to entail a spoiler alert here. These are optional, secret bosses that you can't miss if you don't know to look for them. Starting off at number 10, Pure Color Snail. This unique encounter is found at the bottom of the road catacombs and on a totally by surprise. Like, when you first enter the boss area, you read about a gigantic poster in front of you, like flash in a matter of seconds. You can let it, but don't to talk about it. The obvious to boss is the name. I mean, the boss is called the Spirit Collar Snail, not the Ghost of Green Knight. I know snails can do serve on those snails. So obviously he is not the actual
This one has 2 years.
Instead, if you find a little floating area on the floor and attack it with real energy, reveal itself, a little weird snake, snail thing that's actually responsible for summoning the guy. After attacking it, the creature color was replaced with physical hits, so it kept running down, while it desired to attack. It is not possible to kill the ghost of the green knight. You can go.
The Sharks are playing real well this year. They got not much players available, but oh my god, they got Roto Couture available, but you know, 4 years still shit. Oh wow, they signed F9 for 4 years, that's good.
It's a weird enough encounter we want to do. And number 9 is Star Scourge Dragana. Yeah, you heard us right. This guy is a shard bearer, basically the equivalent of a Lord Soul Dark Souls game. And it's completely optional. If you don't want to fight this guy, you don't have to. And I see a lot of players opting out for the first few tries to try to fight him. Everything about this boss is actually pretty unique for this whole game. Instead of standard monthly dungeons, fight bosses, and formally one of the bosses, this guy's castle, Redmond's castle, is completely cleared out. Not a bad guy in sight. Instead, when you go inside, you fight
basically what happened. Enter that arena, the guy shoots an arrow at you across the map, and you die. This guy's attacks hit hard, and just getting to him can be tough enough. Thankfully, you do get some help. There's someone who's trying to call over the place, and you can hear that call from allies, even if they don't last long. Their presences are pretty much essential. Some of the most nasty become fighters halfway through and jumps up and gets not a fan of that. It's basically a gotcha, because if you don't immediately start switching or jump on your serious team right away, the impact is down. Probably my favorite thing about this guy, though, is this gigantic monster that rides around on little portable side horse. It's ridiculous and just fantastic and weird. I don't know what they can do. I mean, just let it roll horse go. It's crazy. And number 8 is the Godskin model. For most players, the first time for a part one of the top of the world, and then they keep on television. The place is already creepy enough with train and villages that you can right out of do something. And then you get to the top, and this guy shows up wearing what looks like a hood made out of blue thing. He starts off really aggressive, and he's like, what? It's weird looking, but not until you get down to that it really starts getting weird. That's when he reveals his crazy strength. So, like, we consider fantastic on other things. And frankly, that's the today. More of these guys go away. This game has appearance combined with his zombies that I think is one of the most memorable. And number 7 is Pat. We can't make a list like this without mentioning the Pat that's on the fight. He's a guy most Souls players might have a chance to beat on for a while. He's a nuisance and basically shows up in all of the games, so of course he makes it eligible as well. What makes this boss great is less than kind of itself, which is pretty simple. Well, it's one of the 5 and 7 pages. I went to this random location called Firstwater Cave, obviously got a whole lot, and after you deal with a bandit ambush, you enter a suspiciously arena-shaped room with a chest sitting in the center. If you open the chest, the battle begins with Patches jumping down from a ledge and using your stealing, which in this case is accurate. Worse than robbing. The behavior is basically understandable. Usually find the weapons and everything big feels a little weird, which you should be able to easily find that. Once you get up to around 30-40% health, gives up, set off, Sonny is supposed to overfight jump. He does have more tricks after this, but for now he's playing. Another boss is particularly difficult, and a funny little encounter with this many classic characters. And number 6 is the Mimic Sphere, which is deep underground, and it's possible to find it in the mysterious lost city known as Knockrock, the Eternal City. This entire location is totally optional, but it's one of the coolest in the game. And as long as you're thorough, it's not too hard to actually find. Soon after entering, you start encountering weird silver slime creatures that aren't terribly threatening on their own. So when you enter this area and you see one, you're probably thinking, there's not a whole lot to worry about, but this one's different. Instead of just sitting in place and sometimes keep using hopefully it will transform into a dominant. Oh, armor, weapons, even has the same action for you and flip. So depending on your build, it's not going to be really easy for us to keep paying the action. Now if you're an armored guy, that probably means you've gone too hard, but still a fun surprise. Not the hardest encounter, but one of the most engaging. And number 5 is Worm Face. What do we need to say here? The monster called Worm Face. Or it's going on. You encounter this thing guarding the minor nursery outside the town in an office, and it's definitely something different. A giant, elongated human with a hood covering its face. And based on the name, we'll give you a single guess as to what it's hiding. Yeah, its head is a bunch of worms. It's disgusting, but what really makes it terrible is that a lot of its attacks spread black mist, and it causes instant death, and obviously we don't like that. It's kind of bad. It doesn't pull anything too shocking, so it's something a lot of players will be able to deal with on the first try, but still. It's a monster with its face made of worms, and it's called Worm Face. It's memorable, and it's pretty disgusting looking. And honestly, it's pretty tense. It's just not super challenging once you figure out that you can play.
This is the future in a Ford Explorer, built for you. A future where you're the captain and the protector. Bring on the future and get this great offer on the 2022 Ford Explorer, only at your local Ford store.
What is a gem? Excellent question. He is. He's a gem. They're a gem. Awesome. It's really good.
Perfect.
Find your gem.
war is the Dragonkin soldier of Noxtella. Found deep in the underground of the other Eternal City, yes, there are two of them. This one called Noxtella. This boss is pretty much everything you'd want from a Dark Souls boss. Huge, very aggressive, and you fight in a crazy arena. Like, seriously, look at the corpse, it's gigantic. For the first half of this thing, it just shambles around like a really badass zombie, but once you whittle away enough of its health, it starts suddenly waking up, sprouting wings and chucking electricity bolts. And you shouldn't come as any surprises. These bolts will mess you up quick. Those wings aren't just for show either. He starts flying around, dive bombing, and helps you with more magic lightning while you're desperately trying to avoid taking damage. It is just an all-around cool boss, and you don't have any reason to fight other than that it's a big worthwhile experience. And number 3 is the Ancestral Spirit. Now, there are a lot of really cool optional bosses in the underground section of the game, but the Ancestral Spirit is one of the coolest. To encounter this guy, you gotta light up a bunch of bonfires in the underground river of the Oprah. And after that, head to Hollow One Ground to interact with the G-Spot. That'll take you into the arena where you face off against the Ancestral Spirit. And while it's not an incredibly difficult fighter, the fight is just so cool and majestic, it just deserves a spot on the list. One of its coolest attacks is when it starts galloping in the air while breathing fire, or this one where it trots in the air before crashing down on you. This is one boss where the music and animation really stand out and make it unique. The actual encounter isn't the hardest in the game, but the animations are so good, and the music's so unique, that it stands out as one of the best in my mind. And number 2, the God-devouring serpent, Rickety, the Lord of Blasphemy. I love his name. Gives me a little chuckle every time.
Alright, so this is like deep spoiler territory. Hitting the depths of the ball. This guy is a psychic bull. He really pulls out all the stops abilities. Fight, spray acid, spray lava. He's so big it requires a special weapon to fight him. So it sort of works like other human bosses in the military, like Storm. But the difference here is that he's got to mess you up, even when you got a weapon to die. And while his first one was bizarre, the second one was straight up crazy. The snake head dies and his face appears inside the snake's body, and he tries to kill you with a form covered with still living body. It's an insane visual. No. Goes on with it. But because it's more, this guy is done playing around. Something that's a crazy example of selling this skull at his tail and explosion. And worst of all, there's this part where he just summons dozens of flaming skulls in the ceiling that all around you explode. The only way to survive is to run, and if one activates the entire encounter is one of those things you can the entire series. And while it's a gimmick, you get like 11 parts. I wonder that's the bosses that trying to remember it on game. I mean, look at it, they really went that level. And finally, number 1, Astral, natural born of the Forge. But this dark spirit world, the only way you can fight this thing is to struggle with the nightmare lake of rock. A place anyone with any sense would probably never go. I didn't know about it, but I got on. If you somehow manage to survive the poison swamp on steroids, then you can ride the pond down by the river and appear in this random cave to take the crazy spot that is modified and that and awesome. Features look at this thing. They only send these small big giant pictures, a single eye along the forehead, and it's floating on what looks like a big or medium under gravity. There's a lot of stuff this guy can do, and the pressure that goes sitting on it is incredibly difficult. Finding an opportunity to attack is difficult, because you can close the land around the magic bag is basically unavoidable, and you need to tank them and get away, and for most people, the tank is not honest. Like most big bosses on this list, this guy really gets pumped out and he's about 50% health. That's when he starts doing that attack like summoning an acid bomb with ears to crush you with a bug. And all the crazy ways this thing can shoot you up, throw you around, they're all next level. No joke. Just finding this horn built by itself and taking it on as a challenge. It's also really satisfying though when you finally manage to take it down. We've got to try the closest thing while they hit the blood one too, and that alone makes one of the best options for us. And a quick bonus point for you, Millennia Later Matella. She is yet another optional shard bearer that's found in her own massive area. Millennia, at first glance, seems like a standard Dark Souls guy and armor style boss, but she's got one really nasty features up her sleeve that makes her a lot harder. And another thing that's strange about her health bar is like how it keeps getting filled. Yeah, every time she restores her health, and it really makes her pain in the ass even when it's not. And that helps her story like a little bit, like just a few hits on you, and you'll be back to near that health, which goes to indicate any progress you thought you made. It is an unbelievable fight that forces like carefully
her at that. The only thing that makes her not impossible is that she has relatively low movement. And it's not too hard to break her voice. That's basic voice. She gives her sword so much help every time she hits you that if you want to win, you must have to avoid that thing. And that's easier said than done. That's all for today. Leave a comment, let us know what you think. Videos you like, if you're not subscribed to the video, so we're going to that's basically first, of course, subscription, subscribe, don't forget to leave notifications, and all these things very much. People watching this. I'm Val, you can follow me on Twitter, Val the Hero. Because there are a lot of bosses in Elden Ring. By my count, there are 33 unique bosses, not to mention 45 unique mini-bosses. Before we begin, some caveats. I am defining full-fledged bosses as 3 enemy spells. Any enemy spells are mini-bosses and will be ranked in a separate video. To evaluate difficulty strategies and good, I never use summons or the summon action. Finally, this is based solely on my personal opinion. You get to hear how you fare in the world of Elden Ring, so don't hesitate to sound off in the comments. Without further ado, here's my ranking of the Elden Ring bosses from easiest to hardest. Number 33, Rickety. The easiest boss of Elden Ring immediately hammers in another self comparison. Dark Link in a game with near limitless build possibility? Yes, please. What a fantastic concept. This block can morph into whatever you're currently equipped with, making it special every time you encounter it. As cool as that may be, there are some significant flaws when it comes to difficulty. No one knows better than you the strengths and limitations of your own build. Challenge against the toughest foes comes from a vast move set you have to recognize, learn, and react to. By the time I found this mimic, I knew my own better than anyone, just setting aside the enemies. Each fight tends to be predictable and exploitable. Of taking advantage, while I wasn't able to test it for myself, couldn't you theoretically walk in naked and full swap to a regular gear set? A hilarious proposition, yet not necessary since you're gonna blow through a phase. At least I made an effort to spam the weapon art and showed me how rusty my parry skills are. Nonetheless, even if I'm getting into novelty from a quality standpoint, Mimic's gear is bottom of the barrel for difficulty. Number 32 is Champions. From one NPC style fight to another, once it barely scrapes past me. I only give it a slight edge due to 5 combatants over a solo battle, and at least you don't immediately know their moves. That said, their HP was more brittle than journalists' arguments for easy mode. In fact, I quit out and equipped a less upgraded weapon, and I'm still mopping the floor with them. Further against their favor, they spawn in waves. Even first, you have plenty of time to reset your fuel, then spawn the sorcerer, then a trio spawn, which you can easily time and delete one immediately. Considering this game mob garbage safeguards a far more engaging boss, it's a little less offensive, but that makes it no less of a forgettable flex of your strength
imagination is sorely lacking. Only spend your time crashing through the sky, coming up with some kind of winning strategy. When grounded, it'll do some headshots, and worse again, nothing a hardened veteran of reindeer buckland can handle. His guidance through 25 years of spit, to avoid, and an eventual dive back to food, snack, and sense. I used the Great Club +8 with my endgame stats, and did ruin Christmas in the flip of an eye. Later I faced a legal variant, found the Remember. The only noticeable difference was that there was no light up in Hero stuff. Perhaps there was more to the battle. No, it's not really relevant if it can't stay standing to show it up. This fight has beautiful scenery, an elegant soundtrack, and great build-up fighting through an underground haven against spiritual enemies, light horses, and resurrected spirit. While it may have spectacular atmosphere, its battle prowess is fairly more exposed than the wildlife. Number 30, Vancover. My first encounter with the covetous lava slug was in the mines to untap the upgrade material treasure trove. It was my second, leaving the thrilled Stone Digger troll wasn't fated to be my adversary at the time. Turns out while the control VKCs aren't as worn as the giant, Vancover appears to quite a lot, giving you ample opportunity to see for yourself again, and again, how this dragon has little to offer. It slithers around leaving trails of lava as you actually play. It has a sword, but other than a slamming AoE telegraph from a mile away, and the big 180 spike with combat booty smacking, it's mostly for show. To think I compared you to covetous these Java could roll over. It wasn't until later that I found the Makar variant that I realized he's not all slow. He's not tall, and barred his sword to light it ablaze. Lovely. They say it's the thought that counts, but it didn't do him a whole lot of good. Since big bosses have to stay staggered for a long time for a repose, I found it better to attack spam level stuns, which conveniently deleted the majority of that theoretically more difficult type of phase. I did find him a few more times, but noticeably once when I was able to be on horseback. With more space to work with and higher defense, he posed a bit more of a threat. He can obliterate Thorn in a single blow, leaving you vulnerable. So I was able to make short work of him by aiming for the rear to avoid his sword assault. For a long time, this was my sword of the but Vancover showed that fight in my later encounters with the Number 29, Naomi Misbegotten. So, you know how your mind can wander as much as your feet when exploring? I saw the Bridge of Sacrifice in the Weekend Peninsula when something else caught my eye, and forgot about it until the endgame. Leonie far beyond his capabilities and having faced his one in the overworld and other places which shall not go. Hey, I was quite ready to face it. Let's just say that in those other encounters he typically got help, and it's pretty obvious why. Despite high aggression and close speed, he's staggering. For a strength build, that means the alarms are ringing for pancake o'clock. Or at least waffle time. Watching him waffle out of stances as you wail blindly means both avoiding damage and inflicting more of your own. Nullifying him as a threat and battering his HP in one fell swoop is brutal. For what it's worth, I used a very lowly upgraded weapon, and yet it still didn't matter. He feels far more like a mini-boss.
Detroit is struggling.
Way before this. When he has an ally to give you another element to worry about, he's actually kind of fearsome. The rings on that sword is no joke, and for an early game boss, the attack timings have odd delays and variable delivery speed. For that reason, I can imagine him keeping up with the early game struggles to merit not being absolutely, but it's not enough even out of a lowly bottom 5. Number 28, Flying Dragon again. The difficulty of the dragon is a bit of it's the same moveset and design from network tests. With fighting experience under my belt, I knew everything to expect and take advantage. I had begun using the golden halberd of the Tree Sentinel at +2, and it sliced through him like butter. Horseback largely nullifies any danger this fight can offer. Simply hang out next to the wings or legs and bash away. It doesn't do as much damage as the head, but it's not insignificant compared to the design of something like the deer or a big one. Doing this typically makes stomps that are easy to avoid if you aren't overly greedy, which I, for one, would never be. Even if you fall victim to his 180 spin, or slice head chomp, or stomp, the lower overall danger preserves your resources. His fire attacks, on the other hand, do need to be respected. He can fly up straight and force it out with a long step forward, or fly to the side, making the entire horizontal array in front of him unsafe. He has a shake-up where he flies up, and then instead of fire, slams down after a moment. As long as you drive backwards, there's an easy opportunity for some head slaps. And that's all there is to it. There are a half dozen variants of the heal across the left between. Marag can fire soul arrows in lieu of breath, the Dula can swoop and swipe with a huge magic greatsword, exceeds roars to create a fog of scarlet rot around you, with ailment similar to toxic, dramatically reduces your HP over time, which is just delightful. Borealis can do much the same with frostbite, and ailment increasing your damage taken. Both versions also add after effects to their stomps for further status changes, and Grail is a heal with far more power on a bridge, a really cool setting to fight this dragon. The narrow area makes lateral wars even and therefore making a lot more difficult, better highlighting your moveset. I appreciate all the shakeups and designs, keep things fresh, and I enjoy the battle overall. That doesn't remove viable strategies to nullify a lot of his offensive capabilities, making it one of the easier bosses in Elden Ring.
When we take the time to hear different voices, it helps us find our own.
Number 27, Sir, get it off there! They all know it! You know those sorcery builds people develop in the late game that starts and ends there as bosses? Gideon tried to do the same to me for the audacity to even think I could become the Elden Lord. I now know what it feels like to be a melee forward boss against spell spammers. Gideon shows how imposing it can be. A dozen homing soul arrows. Monster shot that chunk half of my long gone vitality. A flaming skull that creates a danger line that obscures vision. Floodflame tosses, scarlet rope, front slams, and on top of it all, the fellow tarnish can use a crimson shuttleluck to undo all of your efforts. This game had an affinity for style fights, as I've somewhat showcased already. It's not my favorite, but Gideon pulled it off admirably. Unfortunately for him, I recently got mollywopped by a certain goddess who used that very scarlet blossom. It shows that its range and inflict rot, even the hope that its center is safe from melee assaults. Use my triple shot crossbow to shove a little bleed up their butt, and now we're hemorrhaging. The sole difficulty in facing off here comes from getting an opening to the path. His magical bonanza has limited counters. Finding them takes a little ingenuity, but once you do, you can make quick work of them. Step aside, old man. Despite your misgivings, I'm on my way to become the new Elden Lord. Meanwhile, your respectable effort earns you a below average difficulty challenge. Number 26, Astel, natural born of the forest. Surely what Orphan of Goth would have grown up to be. I mean, look at that thing. They're cousins at the very least. Unfortunately for Astel, Orphan drains all the oppressive difficulty out of the gene pool. Rather than a suite of script slamming melee, this great one of these favorite size, accompanying range, and a lot of gravity-based AoEs. These include a sweep leaving a layer of AoEs in its wake, a slam generating a ground AoE that pulsates 3 to 4 times, slowing in size with an each blast, a wicked-fast gravity sphere from a distance with a long charge time, a full-on aura of gravity used to crush you, a personal AoE around the boss that doubles as a teleport. Make sure to be aware of your surroundings for that one when you reappear, since Astel won't combo that. Grab, getting further into the battle offers a ring of meteors, reminiscent of the normal versions you see throughout the underground region. And at close range, it uses its pictures to keep you in bed. Thing is, most of this is reasonable to reliably deal with. It's all well-paced and solid gas for you to charge ahead of the swing. Even if you can't hit the weak spot, the body is so large you'll certainly have a target at all times. Whereas Astel gets the advantage is its mobility in relation to the arena size. Teleporting away forces you out, making you deal with ranged assaults until you can get back in. Even when you do, it favors the ground speeds and slams that make AoEs to dodge, which can be tricky. You need to dodge the initial hit, but also be ready to dodge the after effects. This is a common theme we'll be seeing throughout a lot of the more difficult bosses in the game. While Astel has shaped for that, the downtime, more moderate HP and damage output, and big target makes for a more middle-of-the-road encounter. Yes, I should mention we are getting to more of an average difficulty level already. Only at 26, we've already left the realm with a few truly bosses in Elden Ring. Number 25, Dragon Kid Soul. My first encounter with this draconian grunt was an unfair turn. I didn't discover him until I was roughly 90% through the main half of the game with a fully upgraded weapon. As you can see, the result was devastating. To evaluate more of the battle, I tested him for a bit and swapped to a large +2. Even if I get my own offensive capabilities, bear with me. For the first half, I rarely got hit. His waves of electricity are handled well through sprint or basic roll spam, though frequently seem the better options. Yeah, once you reach him, sitting under him is the best choice either. While it's the first instinct, it leads to a lot of slams directly under him. I found it better to bait his long arm pushes, then move into the hit from rear. This evades most of his punches, leaving you offensive freedom. When I made the menu swap from Well, that's when I ran into difficulties. Once you're in its range, you can play on your terms of the pit. Getting back there is easier said than done. Those lengthy punches are backed by a massive hitbox. I enjoy the design of getting your struggle while status positioning away from the punch slams allowed for both offense. It was dynamic the whole way through, making it similar to Astral, but more engaging than anything thus far. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how fun it is on horseback. Those lightning blows are equally difficult to get in on, but if well timed, you can zoom under the extending arm for some quite a fun. Final triplet I found was in the rotted legs, surely one of Miyazaki's favorite locales. Almost certainly being inflicted with a training debuff, or avoiding it by fighting on small platforms against the giant made another delightful wrinkle in his difficulty. Definitely a step up on the average scale, and might have been even harder had I encountered him earlier. Number 24, Nala, Queen of the Full Metal. Teach beneath your feet. The latest in FromSoft's adoration for extermination of demons on route to the actual boss, Nala has an interesting special performance. Similar to the Deacon's Red Spirit, there's a singing scholar you must kill. This is signified by an audio golden glow and purple bugs flying from their direction. The others pose little threat other than periodic fire breath, though damage taken here doesn't matter as it diminishes resources later. Upon killing your third scholarly siren, Renala's egg cracks, you're free to go balls to the wall and making an omelet. It's likely to take more than one go, so don't be greedy if she charges her locker-style burst save. After her first blood, she'll spirit away a few mobs and create giant homing magic. Making use of the locations around the arena to bait and block yourself in the sun because you can hit quite hard. Defeated, you might think it's over. Fortunately, this is merely the warm-up to the real battle. In one of the most stunning arenas of all time, Renala summons her moon burst of magic to take you on beneath its mesmerizing glow. Putting full stop punctuation on the magic you've faced thus far, Renala employs an arsenal to rival Sir Gideon, only much earlier in the game. Her opener shows her turtle urban teachings on the great effect, doing heavy damage if you get hit by it. Alternatively, it could be a great damage opportunity for you to do the long cat sound if you're closer in. These openings are vital due to Renala's propensity to flow back quickly after casting, then fire up more magic. On a melee build, it makes finding the appropriate openings tough, all the more which is firing homing soul arrows, boomerangs, spin blades, and a tracking explosive move. Dodging all this simultaneously and finding a window of opportunity is overwhelming. At least the moon can offer a cheeky opportunity for a hit or two if you can evade the insane explosion quickly. All of this magic is both on hit, but her deadliest attacks are cash summons. In my 3 attempts, I saw 4 wolves, a bloodhound knight, a giant troll, and flying dragon Agil. Yes, she summoned another full-fledged boss a la Velstadt and Elena's Dark Souls 2 bout. I appreciated that during these frightening distractions, her AI seemed inclined to let you fight the ashes and lay off the magic for a short time. The downside to her difficulty is with a little luck and smart positioning, this lax attitude lets you wail on her and evade the ashes completely as they disappear quickly after their initial attacks. All in all, they brilliantly captured what it's like to play the caster with both weaknesses and strengths. Renala has a few too many of the former to be in the major leagues, but she's a solidly difficult battle for an early game brawl.
Still continues to be the easiest way to just get information sent to one somewhere and then shot out to somebody else.
Number 23, Godric the Grafted. The first properly built-up boss of the game after Margit's failed ambush, Godric attempts to fill his shadow by making you kneel. It brings me joy that he takes such indignation in a tarnish, feigning the potential of lordship. He comes across as drunk with power, but an intense feeling underneath the madness that he's confident in his birthright and believes with every fiber of his being your existence is blasphemy. This collective nature comes through in his moveset. A more methodical pace compared to everything you've faced thus far, his combos are widely spaced alongside singular attacks with really long windups. He has that signature quick delivery after though, so learning dodge timing through memorization is key. It's also important to recognize his stance to know which combos to play for you. With enough study, I realized he's best handled at moderate distance, evading attacks and capitalizing on the aforementioned wide gaps that combos end. His elemental attacks, on the other hand, are his difference makers. Earth is the standard, get off the AoE common to many of the bosses in this game, while Wind is a sudden speedy scramble. He'll either shoot off 2 blockable wind bursts or lunge in a tremendous dive. I played the wind shot safe, but preferred the slam as it was easy to dodge and punish. A passive-aggressive stance plugs well into phase 2 when he takes a dragon head for a spin, incorporating fire and a savage grab into his offense. The grab hasn't been tell and needs to be dodged unless you're close and personal roastings. The other fire road attacks can either be outranged or inappropriately recognized in time, massively taken advantage of for your own openings. Godfrey did an incredible job of teaching you how to take advantage on terms you're content with, while imposing enough strength to force you to test the limits of your comfort. Getting slightly above the average, Godfrey is the line at which difficulty begins to springboard up. Number 22, Commander 9. Originally, I thought very little of this rallying leader. I first encountered a variant of the Overlord, with Torrent free to stay well out of his range and pick off the underlings he summoned safely to defend himself. He was mimic tier difficult. It wasn't until I faced him again in Castle Soul that I gained massive respect for the commander. He summons 2 Silver Knights, one with Great Shield and the other a dual wielder. These black ones handle the duo with Knights, but both are tough enemies with powerful weapon arts and pointed crossbow. Once defeated, rather than summoning more mobs, Dial summons his inner nameless king with a lightning buff that continues to inflict crossbow. Taking more damage for mistakes is brutal, something you'll likely make in the face of his intense moveset. The Resident features his spear in a variety of combos. He also has a prosthetic claw on his foot that will include lightning into a slam or dash from the skyward. It does a ton of damage if you get it, making dodge memorization essential. Rolling through and getting a counter seems like the obvious choice, but he has a backstrike that opens his lance to stagger you. It's full counter to an opening that I haven't seen in boss before. His overall moveset does seem generous opening for well-timed evasion. That's easier said than done thanks to what made Nameless so challenging. Strikes in slow ways for timing to vary ever so slightly. One day seem like an opening after including string into more attacks, ice whirlwinds, or some lightning stuff. It's a lot to wager on every offensive gamble. Its difficulty is balanced quite well to test your skills, offering fair opportunity for success to those who can master his dance. Number 21, Loretta, Knight of the Howling Tree. You may have gotten sneak peeks of Loretta throughout the game, based entirely on the design of Tree Sentinel out.
I've never played a Souls game before. I have played Sekiro, love Sekiro, but I know that's very different. I know that's very different from these Souls type games, so this is gonna be rough. Hey, I just got here. I've never played Dark Souls, so. Welcome to Elden Ring, the game that your friends wouldn't shut up about. Is the Elden Ring waiting room right here?
Yes, it is.
Elden Ring, the hype around this game was crazy, and it still is. So let's do it. Let's go wear the Elden Ring or whatever. Sure. So long. This art looks fucking amazing, by the way. God, that's cool. That's my girlfriend waking up early for work. Be next to her after playing video games all night. Oh, is this the save point? Game says touch grass. Impossible. You! I challenge you to war! Wait, I don't know how to play the game. Bring me the Elden Ring. Is it too late for a refund? Yes, Game said you got no vision. You! One who is maidenless. It's gonna shatter their morale. Yeah! Yeah, here we go. What is this? Look! It moves! Nasty! Let's try to see it. Oh! What's this? Come on, game. Get harder. I know you're harder than this. Just get it over with! It's trying to lull me into a false sense of security. So as I was saying, this is like the ogre fight in Sekiro. A little bit scary. Surrender at once, ogre! A neat little trick you can do is to use the ogre to clear out the enemies, like that. So yeah, that's how you use the game. Hi, friends. Hi, friends. Now we counter! My class is the Confessor, an inquisitor of God named Zanric. Jerusalem! The Confessor can fly! The Confessor can strike! The Confessor can hang women for going mad! Ah, now you show your final form. Now I can enter the castle. Terrible security. They left the door open. Sounds like they need a VPN. Terrible transition. This video is sponsored by NordVPN. I will use the ad money to buy Elden Ring. I've talked about how I actually use VPN, but this time let me give you a demonstration. For Honor is a region-locked game, and this is me trying to find a match without my VPN turned on. Very high activity, this will be done in no time. Now I'll try it again, but with NordVPN. Connect to a US server, connect my Xbox to the laptop, share a Nord connection, Xbox is connected, and I found a match. Now I can play For Honor. What have I done? I do this for every region-locked game, which includes Siege, Halo NCC. It's great too, because it's an extra layer of cybersecurity, which keeps me safe from DDoS attacks and hack wars. If you want to check it out, just click my link in the description. Nord also has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you're somehow satisfied, you get a full refund. Come on, game. Get hard. I'm not falling for your shit. Get hard and punish me.
Greetings.
Hello.
I am Melina.
Back, woman. I am a man of God. I will not be. I accept.
Have you heard of the
There's a joke in my head, but it's disgusting. Ah! No maiden, no maiden. Sexual speed with
music to traverse great distances?
oh, through the mountain.
It will summon a spectral steed named Torrent.
Fabio, I call upon the steed. Oh, appears under me. Hey, Fabio! Woo! We're back! Oh, she's got a double jump. Fabio goes crazy in this universe. I'm wearing the shirt. Gotta represent, man. If you hit me, you're maidenless. Ooh. Finally, the first boss. Margaret. We'll see about that, Margaret. Let us begin. The ring will not be Elden much longer. Dodge, immediately. I have your attack pattern. Oh, dodge. That is the longest windup I have ever seen. What was that? Ooh, dodge again. Block. Counter. Okay, don't do that. Oh, shit. Stop panic dodging. Longest windup I've ever seen. Oh. Oh. Counter. Oh. No. I dodged too early. This guy delays his attacks like crazy. We'll go again. I know the timing now. What kind of rage? You were nowhere near me. The wind-up. Okay, I'll start counting. Oh, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, dumbest idea I've ever. I'm sorry I told you, Margaret. Margaret, that is your name. Oh my god. Game, make it easy. Game, time out. Time out. Okay, patience. I need to slow it down and actually look at his animation. I can learn this. Okay. Delayed slam. After that, 2 slashes. I got it. After that, he does whatever he wants. Ladies and gentlemen, my companion, the sorcerer. I got this, Sorcerer Rocher. Keep distracting. Yes! Nice, nice. A couple more of that. Oh, beat his ass. Oh, what? No! I keep panic dodging. I don't know how to play this game. How am I doing worse? At least the loading screens are nice. Look at this concept art. It's so cool. And even from the intro earlier, I need this as a wallpaper. Alright, back to it. Oh, shit! I can't! It's too hard. This is the first boss. This is too hard. I want to play Death Sector. I'll fight him later, I guess. Do some leveling. This is an open world. Not a bad idea to go explore. Fabio, look! An island! Let us see what secrets it holds. A treasure chest. Oh! It was a trap! A bamboozle, even. That's kind of cool, though. It teleported me to a brand new area, where the enemies are 20 times stronger than me. Fast travel out of here, and I can find it. A walk. Is this what you want? A walk back to Margit. Ow! I want to go home. Fabio, where have you taken us? Since the last time I fall asleep at the wheel. Fabio, you said this place was safe. You said we were going to Applebee's. Fucking balloon. Paris! Balloon! It's the fastest bear in the world. Hi, friend. Swap and weave. Yeah! That's your calendar. Oh! One life in a dream. One life in a dream! Yes! I did it! Oh, I needed that. My powers have doubled since we last met, Margaret. I brought extra friends this time, Margaret. Get them, puppies! Get them! Oh my god, we're doing it. The boys and I can do this. Fuck. Oh, wind up. I got the timing. Oh my god. Oh my god. I tried to parry. Ah! I don't like this game right now. Ah! Yeah, I got that timing down. Alright, I've mastered one out of your 900 moves, Margaret. What are you gonna do next? Wrong choice. Alright, I'll fight him later. Look at this guy. He's a big rat. You don't stand a chance, Ratatouille. I beat Margaret. The puppy companions are so good because they just distract the boss while I do that. Got him. What is this? It's a cat. Dragon. You're no match for me. I beat Margaret and Ratatouille. I might be over leveled for this. There's dungeons in the open world that I haven't been doing. Pretty sure this is what I'm supposed to do instead of trying to fight Margaret first. Oh, here's another dungeon. It's okay. Another boss in here. Monkeys! Monkeys don't live in the cave. Something fishy's going on here. Ah! What happened? There's 2 health force epics. Oh, they're easy. Or the puppies that I summon are crazy good. That's probably it. You are no match for me, elven monkey. Get this. Sewing needle. Oh, for this guy. Just the sheer scale of everything. And this is just one region. I didn't even see it all. Over here. Is that another castle? Okay, I'm terrified. Whoa, what am I doing? Oh. I'll fight this guy. He's small. Ow. Ow. I'm having so much trouble adjusting to the gameplay. Not used to this. When can I attack, bro? When can I attack? Now! Oh, I got this. Dodge. No! Patience. Yes, anyone's got some tips on how to improve with the combat? Just leave it in the comments. Never mind, I don't need your tips. I have returned that bird. I'm stronger than you will ever know. Attack! Stop flying, you pussy! Maidenless behavior. Oh my god, what is my game doing? Stop blocking all my random shit! I can't even find enough! Why? Oh, it's dropped. Yo, it even has a plume. You see it. George, stop you! This is for the title of Horse Monster. Yeah, we can cheese this guy, Fabio. Hey! We did it, buddy! So, one final time, Margaret. Watch that. Watch that. Counter. Oh! I know that sounds difficult. has to be it. This has to be it. I can do this. No. No. This is me. No. Oh, fuck you. Oh, that's that down. God, I can only get one. Numbers so fast. I got that. I did it! Verbatim! I beat the first goal. Stormvale Castle. Alright, Zanric, our first objective is to acquire drift. Begin thing. FromSoft fans are something else, dude. Why does everyone have such a big head? I didn't know FromSoft fans were this bad. Like, I've only played Sekiro.
Yeah, the thing is, like, people in Sekiro are pretty nice. There was no PvP or whatever.
I dipped my toe into the PvP and Sekiro.
Oh, okay, right. Then you think that's bad. You look at the guy to, like, market, right? And then there's some motherfucker in there just, like, bragging about how good he is. I have a guide for you all. Get good. Like,
if you want me to gargle their nuts, dude? I used to think that Halo fans were the worst fans. I still think that. I still think that. The FromSoft fans are like very fine.
The worst feeling then is you spend like 3 hours on a boss. You somehow how the boss is like, oh, you're still on that? No. You can beat him with that? Like what?
Hold on, let me just get my knee pad so I can suck you off properly because you're so much better than me. I'm quite getting good. I don't know, I've tried having sex with people once in your life. How hard is the blood put in the round?
Which one? I would say difficult. I had and you're higher level defense, so you could probably get. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you're ever doing PvP, I would for me. But he doesn't care. I'm here. Yeah, I've only killed one so far. The second one, and the second I'm doing pretty good.
I got him!
Nice. Imagine being with Minecraft.
People have been enjoying my time with television. If you're like me, you've never played a full game before, I still recommend it. You have to go into the game with the knowledge of the game. Just explore the challenge. All the time for those people don't get training, growth, rules. Look at this guy. Cut his own arm off and makes it to the dragon guy. Yeah, that's necessary.
Our next Bitbuy commercial is about missed opportunities. So many Canadians wish they bought tech stocks or real estate just 10 years ago.
That's long lost. The day has come. He's playing the shard. The elephant room. I think. I'm not 100% sure what's happening. The wait for the body vision is really cool.
I'm only the page in the full picture. General Radon is pretty as a monster. Studied by my name is Scarlet Lord. Oh God. Now we got the corpses and all friends and monsters like gorgeous like dogs.
I won't kill him the game says. See, the thing about the fight against General Radon is that just getting to him is a challenge because he shoots massive arrows at you. They give walking a skill gap. You understand? Right? So this part you gotta get on the horse. This is my first rodeo, Radon. I will vanquish you yet. Also, it's pretty hard to see because he's massive. Oh, when did I drink? Yeah, I got that timing down. Good effort though, Radon. Hey, I was summoning. It doesn't count. Oh, I gotta keep up. I don't need to see the fight. Okay, so what happened, Radon leaps into the sky and disappears. When he comes back, we'll be ready. Down. Yeah, watch out for that. So you gotta be on the horse. You gotta be on the horse for that. Why is this stuff gone? Oh my god. Those are some massive meteors you got there, Radon. He's gonna chuck him at me, I already know. Why is it destroying the meteor? There's no way. There's no way he doesn't do it. Oh my god! Oh! Oh my god! I can't see. I can't see! Look at the floor! If anything that can be a motivation, go to the floor. Save the poor horses. What? He's got the range of the entire arena. Where you go? Wait, don't panic. I drank out of panic. Oh god, the meteor. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. My environment is not helping right now. Stop. I'm fighting for my fucking life here, Mira. He's so mobile. I can't even hit him. No. Ah! How do you like my magic spells, Radon? Can't run from that shit.